He was my boss. He'd become a friend.
Jeff Mateer was the second highest ranking official in the Texas Attorney General's office in the fall of 2020 when he says he tried repeatedly to convince AG Ken Paxton to stop using the office in unusual ways to remedy business and legal problems for Paxton donor and friend Nate Paul.
I mean, he was not a good guy.
Mateer says he pleaded with Paxton.
Ken, why are we involved in this?
And as Paxton's wife, State Senator Angela Paxton, looked on, Mateer testified it all started to make sense when he learned Nate Paul was employing a woman who had been Ken Paxton's mistress.
Because it answered the question, why is he engaging in all these activities? And it was like...
Made on behalf of Mr. Paul?
On behalf of Mr. Paul. Why is he engaged in this? I mean, it seemed to me he was under undue influence. At times I thought, is he being blackmailed?
Similar words from witness 2, another higher up at the office, who says Paxton was uncharacteristically insistent and micromanaging on odd legal maneuvers that might help Nate Paul.
It was bizarre.
And why was it bizarre?
He was acting like a man with a gun to his head.
But the defense questioned the loyalty of top staffers as they were readying to report Paxton to the FBI.
You were involved in staging a coup, weren't you?
A coup? Absolutely not.
The defense adding this about the day the group signed a letter that they'd blown the whistle on their boss.
That same day, George P. Bush, who ran against General Paxton, did he not?
He did in the primary.
George P. Bush applies to reactivate his law license. You see that?
That's what that document appears to say.
You ever hear that old saying, there are no coincidences in Austin?
He said he had not heard that phrase before and that he has never spoken to George P. Bush, but a big suggestion made by the defense in the court yesterday. We will see what comes on day 3 today.
Oh, I can't wait. George P. Bush. This is George P. Bush staging a coup in Texas. This is what his lawyers came up with. And to be humiliated like that in front of your freaking wife. I mean, in front of your wife who is sitting in the Senate as a Texas state senator who can't even vote on your innocence or your guilt because she's your wife. It just says everything about nepotism and about patronage and the swamp that is the Texas state legislature that produces, some of the most amazing people in our political lives, like W. Jesus. Unbelievable. I have been waiting for, Ken Paxton has been under indictment the whole time he was the Attorney General of Texas for different matters, for securities fraud. And the Texas State House had no problem with it. It didn't bother them. They had no issue. 5 years, 6 years, this man is still under indictment, and he is the Attorney General. The Attorney General. But this, somehow, the cheating on the wife and the developer, the donor, and the, employment of your mistress, that was too much. Securities fraud. I mean, Vivek Ramaswamy, he's fine with it. They will all vote for felons as long as it's securities fraud, as long as it's fraud at the Trump University, as long as it's fraud against, ordinary little people, as long as that's the kind of fraud you're engaged in. But once you start involving us in covering up for, your affair, well, you better stand trial, son. There's a culture war we're involved in. Oh, my God. It's embarrassing. Okay? Texas, Tennessee, Florida, embarrassing. Embarrassing. Alabama, too. What is Tommy Tuberville doing for 9 months holding up the ability to promote the top, generals to have a commandant of the Marine Corps? Or somebody in charge of the fifth or sixth fleet. I mean, this is insanity. Why? Because they're too woke. The military is too woke. This is their argument. Too woke. The Navy is too woke.
We are so woke in the military. We're losing recruits right and left. Secretary Del Toro of the Navy, he needs to get to building ships. He needs to get to recruiting and he needs to get wokeness out of our Navy. We've got people doing poems on aircraft carriers over the loudspeaker. It is absolutely insane of the direction that we're headed in our military, and we're headed downhill, not uphill.
Edna St. Vincent Millay is not being read on Navy battleships, okay? I don't even know what the F he's talking about there with his... Why is he so anti-poetry? Anybody ever listen to Eminem? Awesome, poetic poetry. Most lyrics are, and everybody's dying now. Everybody's dying. Even Bruce Springsteen. Bruce canceled September tour dates. That can't happen. That cannot happen. I mean, Gary Wright, Dreamweaver. What do you think that was? That wasn't poetry? He's dead. Jimmy Buffett, Cheeseburger in Paradise. Not poetry, dead. Everybody died. I mean, I don't even know what to make of this. 9 months this man is holding up promotions. And he said, the reason why we can't recruit is because of the wokeness. No, the reason why we can't recruit is because of the uncertainty involved in being in the United States military. That's why we can't recruit. Has nothing to do with wokeness. It has to do with the fact that military families, they have to deploy to wherever, the wife is stationed or the husband is stationed. They have to put their kids in school over there. They have to find, if they don't want to live in on-base housing, they want their own little apartment or whatever it is. And nobody has any certainty about where they're going to be next year because they don't know who's in charge of their branch.
What Senator Tuberville is doing is undermining our national security.
Yes.
This is what the Secretary of Defense says.
Yes.
This is what all of the defense experts say. And this is, in fact, I'm sure you've heard the story about the Chinese diplomat who recently was laughing and making fun at his American counterpart because we can't even get our military promotions in line. I was recently over in NATO. I'm the head of the Personnel Subcommittee of the Senate Armed Services Committee. I was talking with our folks who are on the front lines in the negotiations to help support Ukraine and working with our NATO allies. And one of the things they talked about is how Senator Tuberville's 9 months so far hold on promotions means there are places where we don't have the right person in the room or we don't have anyone in the room to be able to negotiate. And that is being replicated all around the world. No head of the 5th Fleet, no head of the 7th Fleet, no head of Cyber Command, soon to be no head of the Joint Chiefs.
What could go wrong? What did you think was going to happen, Alabama, when you elected a college football coach to the awesome deliberative body known as the United States Senate? Everything with them is a culture war. Every freaking thing. Nothing to do with national security. Nothing to do with protecting the military families who are in limbo. They are in absolute limbo. Nothing to do with having people in the room for sensitive negotiations between countries whose interests might not align with ours. We have nobody representing us, and Tuberville is just fine with it. He's good with it. No problem. And this party will vote for a felon.
Clear.
Don't have time to listen to the live show? Want to hear more on your schedule? Go to RandiRhodes.com and buy a stinking podcast.